It's Saturday morning. That means it's time for Green and Gold Game Day with Jay Bartley on 740 The Fan and 740thefan.com. We'll talk all things NDSU Bison, the Missouri Valley Football Conference, and all of the FCS. Powered by Peterman Seeds. Now your host for Green and Gold Game Day here on 740 The Fan, Jay Bartley.
Good morning, sports fans. What a Saturday. If you're like me, you live for these days. What a Minnesota sports fan feast we have here today. We're going to get to a bunch of it, but I just want to say welcome. Derek, you and I, we're sports junkies.
Oh, man. This is the best time of year, right? I mean, I think end of March, early April is good. Start of baseball, Final Four, all that. But to me, this is top notch. We got the beginning of hockey and basketball right in the heart of college and pro football season, of course. It's always nice when we got Twins postseason baseball.
We've been deprived of Twins postseason baseball, and I think when it's here, you realize how fun it can be. I certainly love it, but you throw a Twins playoff baseball game in the middle of a great college football day. So that's what we're going to talk about today, just having a little fun with all the college sports. And if you want to talk sports with us, Derek's going to lead you on how you can do that with us.
Yeah, 237-3767. Very simple to do, 237-3767. If you want to text us from the Adventure via text line, it's 35270. So just put J and then we'll know it's for us. So yeah.
We've got a good show for you today. Randy Hedberg, Bison quarterbacks coach, Derek, is going to join us at 8:10. I'm not sure if you knew that yet, but we're going to call him and we're going to talk. We're going to talk a bunch of stuff, kind of status of the quarterback room. I think it's always fun for fans like us, maybe call myself a rube, just to see what's next. I mean, we've got these two quarterbacks playing a ton of really good football, at times some really high-end football, carrying the ball a lot, and just see what's next. I mean, every time we get a big recruit, it's fun to learn about them, but then they vanish. They redshirt, they gain their 20 pounds. So I think we'll talk to Randy about who's coming up next. Talk about maybe some of the young wide receivers. I know that's been a recruiting emphasis. Some of those guys are starting to play. Some of them are still young, red shirts, etc. But we'll talk about the Bison offense, what we're doing. I believe they're fifth in FCS in scoring, so a lot of good things going there. And we'll talk to him probably a little bit about the loss last week and what we're going to do today against Missouri State.
Yeah, Missouri State always a tough place to play, but I think there's going to be an angry bunch of Rams and Code Green defenders out there that, I think it's justified to say just probably a little bit embarrassed what happened last week at homecoming, right?
I can't imagine it was a fun week.
No.
I mean, I know Matt Ent's pretty good, and I'm guessing he still doesn't have a voice.
No.
So, yeah, I think sometimes you just maybe need to focus a little bit more on yourself, and I would guess this is kind of a Bison week. No disrespect to Missouri State, but they've struggled traditionally in the trenches, and I would guess we run the ball really well today. And we'll talk about that. Brent Tehven, great friend of mine, he's going to join us at 8:30. We're going to talk a little Bison Collective, some of the stuff that we're doing kind of off the field to support Bison athletes. Brent Tehven is going to be the what do we call him? The new president of the BFPA, Bison Former Football Players Association, and a great friend, part owner of Herd and Horns. They've been great to us here at the Green and Gold Collective, so we're going to get him on the air, talk about some of the stuff he's doing. That'll be about 8:30. We're going to talk some Minnesota Twins. Derek, you're a junkie. Yeah. I'm gonna ask you to talk a little playoff baseball at times today, and then I don't know what you did last night, but two great they were terrible football games, but it was still Friday Night Football. I flipped a little Davies high school football. They lost to Shanley, but I watched a lot of Nebraska, a lot of K-State. As a Nebraska fan and also now a new K-State rube, neither team played good last night, and we can talk about that.
I was at you mentioned Brent Tehven. I was at West Fargo High School watching Cheyenne and West Fargo go at it, and talking to Jeremy Newton. He's like, so what do you think? And he goes, well, Jake Gibson's on the other side. You never know what you're going to get. Yeah. So, the Packers held good with the number 2 team in state. That's, pretty good. It's just it comes down to turnovers always, right? And that's what it really comes down to.
So who won that game?
Cheyenne did. And it was, pretty impressive actually with how the Packers played. 3 interceptions really was kind of the difference in that ball game. So
turnovers.
Yeah. It always comes down to it. A little slow start too. So I watched. I called a lot of Brent Tehven games over in that field back in the day. There wasn't field turf then, I can guarantee you. And he and Tyler Roll and a lot of these guys.
Well, we can ask him. He's a great and a proud Packer.
Yes, he is, and he should be.
Yeah, was a great player and a nice former Bison. So we'll chat with him about 8:30. I just thought we'd chat a little bit, start off the show, just Bison football. Big loss last week. I would say, if you want to play the tape, we were 22-point favorites last week. I thought we'd roll. I thought it was comfortable. And I thought we got it going in the second half kind of nicely, moved the ball. All of a sudden the Rams are moving the line of scrimmage. It just didn't seem like a lot of urgency.
Yeah, it was a frustrating game, I think, for many aspects. And I think on the other side of it, too, the balance that the Coyotes had on offense. And I wouldn't say that they outmanned them on the trenches, but they had the Bison defenders going one way and then trap blocking them the other way. Did you notice that? It's just that they had everyone on skates, it seemed like, just with the misdirection, the stuff they were doing off that read option that Bauman ran very, very well.
We did talk about that quarterback last week on the show. He was a transfer from Iowa State. His dad, obviously, Todd Bauman, played in the NFL for like 14 or 15 years as kind of a professional backup quarterback, which everyone loves. He's a great athlete, and I thought he was very skilled. Didn't throw it a ton, but high completion rate. We gave up 2 touchdown passes of over 50 yards, Derek, which rare. But
Right.
It's tough to defend a guy for 4 seconds. If you aren't getting to the quarterback, you can blame the corners all you want, but we got to get to the quarterback.
No, there was no balance there at all. You're right. I mean, that is the full, cut off the head of the snake thing that the defense tries to do. Well, if you can't get to them, they're going to bite you, and that's exactly what happened.
When I looked at this team going into the year, we had some transfer portal issues at corner, and I thought, okay, we're going to be thin at corner. But what helps a corner is a D-line that's getting to the quarterback. And right now, I would say our D-backs and safeties have been solid. I thought the linebackers have shown some flashes, but probably not been all that consistent. And I think the defensive line has just been average. And I think, in the Valley, when you're playing against good teams, and I thought USD was equally as physical. And like I said last week on the show, everyone has recruited to beat the Bison, including South Dakota State, and now they're at the top. But everyone has gotten more physical, more demanding on how they're going to defend the run and run the ball. And I just didn't think we were the more physical team last week.
No, and I think that's a little concerning. Obviously, you want to fix that this week because there's going to be a team that wants to be physical for coming up next week at the Alaris Center too, right? I mean, we can't get ahead of ourselves. We got a homecoming game that's going to be here on the Fan going up at the Alaris Center. A tough, place to play. Obviously, the team isn't as good as it's had been the past couple of years, but you don't want to take Missouri State lightly at all. Just with
you can't overlook teams in the Valley. However, we aren't players, so we can chat about that game next week, and we're going up to the Alaris to play University of North Dakota, who does exactly what I feel like they do every year, and that is beat nobody and lose the big games convincingly and end up at 6 or 7 wins. And that's what they've continued to do. They got blown out by Boise, blown out by South Dakota State. And it's just going to be an interesting game up there, as always. But, rarely does NDSU go into hostile territory where you're at 12, 13,000 crazy fans, and they will be up for the test. Their fans will be wild. I'm sure we'll have some fans up there as well. But, like you said, that's next week. And today we've got Coach Randy Hedberg. Randy, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Jay.
Can you hear him?
I can't hear him, no.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, for some reason, Jay's headphones are messed. I'll just put the mic off and on here so you can hear it. So say it again.
I'm doing well, Jay. How are you?
Okay, I'll try to get his headphones straight here. But, Coach, just talk about the week a little bit after, it was certainly a disappointing loss. I'm sure it was a pretty nose to the grindstone type of situation, I'm guessing.
Well, yeah, we haven't had a lot of them, Derek, through the years. And, I think the thing that happens is, you look back on it, we had a similar situation back in 2015 when we played South Dakota in the Fargo Dome. And and they came back and beat us, and we rebounded after that game, and that's the game actually Carson Wentz got injured in, and so it's a similar situation to the standpoint of the opponent and all, and we came back and won a number of games in a row, and we started a freshman quarterback the very next game after the injury to Carson, and we did fairly well. So it's one of those games that you never know what's going to happen, but I think we'll be ready to play today.
Coach, tell us what you're expecting today at Missouri State.
Well, Missouri State's got, they got good athletes. They always have good athletes. They get a number of transfers in, on a yearly basis, and so their team changes quite often, from year to year. So I think that'll be the case. We're going to have to be able to sustain drives and score in the red zone when we get there and score touchdowns and not settle for field goals. That's going to be important. So those are things we got to do offensively, and we got to have a good game from our skilled players, and going to have some man coverage, so our receiver's going to have to get open and against that man look.
Coach, before you got on, we talked a little bit today about the status of the quarterback room and also some of the young wide receivers, which you just mentioned. And maybe you could walk us through some of the guys we maybe haven't heard of yet, but we will. Some of the guys waiting their turn or maybe creating their turn.
Well, I think, quarterback-wise, we've got the two with Cam and Cole that have got a lot of minutes to this point. Cam more than Cole, and I think Cole's showing well when he's gotten the opportunity to play, and so we'll continue that way with them. We've got a couple other young quarterbacks, Peter Anderson and Nathan Hayes, and then a true freshman, Trey Drake, that I think has some potential down the road. But that's our group as quarterbacks, and I think they've progressed very well as we've gone through this season. Receiver-wise, I think we've got a lot of depth. That's probably the position group on our football team that has the most depth is the receiver room. There's some good talent there, good young players. I just think the youngest ones, Mekhi Collins, Carson Hegerly, Chris Harris, just to name a few that are really good players that are young, and they're probably not getting the reps that they will get in the future at this point because we have some guys a little older that are getting a lot of reps.
Yeah, it's exciting as a guy that follows recruiting. It's fun to hear like Hegerly and Mekhi Collins and these big names, big recruits with lots of offers. And then they kind of come in, they hibernate, they gain their 20 pounds, they wait their turn. But like you said, they've got some guys that are 4 or 5 years older than them, and sometimes it's tough to be patient. But as fans, it's fun to think about the future, and certainly excited. I believe you guys are, what did I see today, top 5 in FCS in scoring offense?
Oh, I don't even know, Jay. To be honest with you, I don't even know where those numbers are. That's good to hear. But
well, leave that stuff for us, okay?
Today. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, but the thing that with the young receivers, they show out a lot in practice. Probably don't get the game reps that the older players get, but those young guys get a lot of practice reps, whether they're going against the number 1D or the number 2D or whatever it is. And so we were able to get a good evaluation of those guys as we go through, and it's a positive group. I mean, there's good players in that group, and I think we are getting better and better each day with those guys.
Well, you certainly see the size in Hegerly and Mekhi Collins. They look different than what we're used to seeing at a lot of Bison wide receivers. Big kids.
Oh yeah, they're big kids that can catch the ball, very very athletic, can run. Carson can run, and Mekhi can run, and and then they can catch the ball over the middle, which also helps, which is a big thing, in the passing game. Being able to be big enough to cross the middle and potentially get hit by a safety or a linebacker and still maintain possession of the ball.
Do you expect? You mentioned earlier today a lot of single coverage from the corners at Missouri State. Do you think they're going to be selling out against the run and giving us that opportunity outside?
Oh, yeah. I think every team that we play, they know they have to stop the run game against the Bison, and that's going to be the key to, whatever we do. So we're going to have to do a good job of mixing up, run, pass, and we've done a good job through the first, 4 games of doing that, and not being able to be real tendicized as far as formationally what we're going to do, run, pass. So I think those are things that we got to get accomplished today against that defense that we're going to see now. They're mainly a 4-down defense. We think that they'll do some odd front defenses against us in certain situations. So we're going to have to be ready for that also.
One final thing, my guy Barika Panu from West Fargo Cheyenne looked sharp last week. I've been waiting for him for a couple years and finally getting to be his turn. Tell us about him.
Well, I'll tell you what, Jay. He, ever since I had a hand in recruiting Barika, out of Cheyenne, and he's shown to me that he's a really good back, and I think we're seeing some of that develop as we go through. He's a little bit more mature than he was a year ago, and I think that'll keep getting better and better. But he has an extremely bright future. He can catch the ball. He runs the ball well. The one thing that he has to get better at, which is always with young backs, is protections and making sure he gets his eyes in the right spot as far as protections, the linebackers and secondary guys, second and third level defenders that come into the box. He's got to do a better job with that, but he's getting that. He's getting better with that.
Well, it's fantastic. And Randy, I know it's game day. When I texted you yesterday, I wasn't sure if we'd be able to steal you for a few minutes, but as always, you're a true professional, and thanks for coming on and spending a little game day morning with us.
Well, thank you, Jay. Thanks for having me.
Yep,
Go Bison.
It's not raining, is it? I hope. I mean, we got that going. I think we might have lost him there, but I was kind of curious about that too. Yeah. What's the weather like there?
Oh, it's really nice. It's sun shining, and it doesn't look like it's windy, very, very windy. I think it's going to be in the 50s.
Perfect.
Low 60s, so it's pretty nice, actually.
Well, hopefully we have some parents and fellow Bison fans that have made the trip down to Missouri, and we come out with a convincing win, get back to Bison football.
Yeah, there's a lot of people down here. I've already seen quite a few that have been down here in the hotel we're staying at. So, yeah, it's going to be a good crowd. We're excited to play.
Oh, thank you, Randy. Appreciate your time.
You bet. Thank you. Thanks for having me, guys. See you.
You bet. Interesting, too, as far as the weather, what that might bring to the table here, too, Jay. And I'm just kind of, I've no doubt, like you said, I'm glad that there's a nice dry track and we can see this running game and try to get a balanced attack going for the Bison today. I think that's what they're going to be looking for sure. Missouri State caught NDSU at a very bad time, I think.
Traditionally, when the Bison lose or don't look, like the Bison, they come back and spank their opponents pretty good. So I wouldn't envy this position. For whatever reason, that program really hasn't. I always thought it was kind of a sleeping giant. Like, it's such a good recruiting spot. They've brought in big-name coaches. They've spent the money, but they haven't got it going. Kind of a constant revolving door of players. I want to say they had like 55 transfer portal kids like 2 years ago when they were in like 8th in the country, and they just fizzled out. And they've had good coaches. I mean, Bobby Petrino, what's he calling plays at Texas A&M now?
Yeah, yep. Yeah,
he's big
for Jimbo
time.
Fisher, for sure. Yeah, I mean,
he's absolutely the biggest name that's probably come through, like the Fargo Dome in the last 10 years in coaching, and he couldn't even get them like top 10 in FCS. There's not 10 good teams in FCS.
Yeah, and he had transfers from all over too.
All over.
To your point, I mean, Missouri State, you think would be. You look at the Oklahoma schools and the Kansas schools and Missouri itself, yep. Mizzou. I mean, they should be able to get a lot of those kids maybe falling through the cracks all those years of the FCS, falling from the FBS level. It's a very, very good point. And it's just kind of interesting to see where that is going to go, what direction that is going to go down the road. I'm kind of looking forward to seeing that play out and see what happens today. So,
well, if you're looking forward to it, Derek, I do know that you have to be creative if you want to watch this game.
Is that right?
Yeah, this is like the one game a year where you have to do ESPN Plus.
Oh, that deal, huh?
So this will be where my dad scrambles and says, "Hey, what channel is this one on?"
Oh, yes.
Halfway through the first quarter, and now I'm helping him with my password on ESPN or something. So
that's unfortunate. I hate that because the biggest thing for me, Jay, and I know this, you don't really realize it. This was brought up a lot with Sid Hartman when the whole stadium thing was coming up with. Whether or not they should get the twins, keep them here, or whatever. Then when your grandparents go into assisted living or a nursing home or whatever, these sporting events are huge. And for it to be complicated, that's why I hate these Amazon games.
I do too.
Just because I think that we get in this world, and I think like the NBA and the Timberwolves are kind of getting. I mean, the Timberwolves are going to have their own streaming channel where you can find the games all the time just on audio. And I think And this next generation of people, you got kids, and congratulations. I do believe the young lady in your life golfed pretty well this week. Is that correct?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
That's a good little filler. But, yeah, she took second place in North Dakota State.
So congratulations. That's awesome.
It was a great way to end her career. I kind of went into the weekend thinking, it's almost – she had won state as a sophomore, took fifth as a junior. It almost felt like the only thing you can do is either win or fail.
Yeah.
Anna from Mandan, who won it, just blew the field away. She's committed to NDSU, just a brilliant young player and a nice young girl. I think Lexi went over to her on the first tee and said, hey, good luck, go get it. And I think she was nervous, hadn't led a big tournament like that, and she led start to finish. But Lexi, finishing first, fifth, and second in the last 3 years and going to go play college golf was certainly a fun opportunity as a dad to finish like that. She finished birdie par to take second, and it was a blast to watch.
Well, Jack Michaels and I were really happy that the first week of your show, in between your first and second shows here, that we got to brag about your daughter a little bit doing so well in golf. So that was pretty fitting that you're on board here and we got to do that.
He's always been a fan. When she won state, he was the first call and got her on the air, and she was like, oh my gosh, I have to do radio. She's like 15 years old.
And the other thing I was you mentioned Pennu, and I saw a younger one last night, and he was my CI Sport Player of the Game. Wow. And Jeremy Newton, the head coach of the Mustangs, he rides that horse too.
How big is he?
Not very.
Yeah.
He's tough. He can't bring him down. he's a bowling ball for sure.
Well, Barika was on my son's
I think he's strong,
team.
big, but he's not imposing Derek Henry type of looking guy. No.
Barika was on my son's travel basketball team, and I remember texting Kleiman like, hey, I don't know if this kid even plays football, but I'm watching an absolute stud athlete.
Yeah.
And I thought when we got him, he was like a scat back, like a third down specialist. He's now an every down back, and he's also the nicest young kid, but he's like 205 pounds now. He looks like Emmitt Smith, like muscles on top of muscles.
Right.
So I'm excited. Last week he got loose a couple times, and honestly, I'd like to see our running backs carry the ball more. I think the quarterbacks are keeping it so much that I'm far from an expert here, but I'd like to see us feed a running back today and get someone with 12 to 15 carries and get into a pattern like, hey, this guy's got the hot hand and feed it.
Well, I think the criticism of, knowing what's coming with the quarterback running plays all the time was a little bit, okay, you can get away with it if you're successful. Now that you've had some stumbles along the way, obviously, if the fans at home can see it, the defensive coordinator for the other team is seeing it too, and I think that's something Tyler Olo, I think, does a very good job. But I think obviously they got to mix that up. It's pretty, and your Emmitt Smith comparison, I think that's perfect. I was trying to find it myself how those guys run, those brothers run. I don't think there's any doubt that is perfect. Or they're not imposing when you look at them, but they're tough to bring down. They're stronger when they look, and that's exactly what we saw last night.
I ran into him at a high school graduation party and kind of gave him a hug, and I went, whoa. he got Kramered, so
his hug was the equivalent of what we always heard with Adrian Peterson's handshake.
Yeah, I was like, all right, this kid, 2 years in the program now, it's his turn. So let's go to break here and come back. We'll talk to Brent Tehven.
All right, this is the Green and Gold Game Day Show at Jay Bartley here on 740 The Fan and 740thefan.com.
Bumper to bumper.
Brian Oak.
You talk to this incredible variety of people. The way you engage people in conversation, I'm a gigantic fan of yours, Dan.
Weekdays, 3 to 6:30 p.m. on 740 The Fan and 740thefan.com.
740 The Fan, 740thefan.com. Derek Hanson producing. This is the Green and Gold Game Day Show with Jay Bartley.
Hey, thank you, Derek. Yeah, we're having a nice little Saturday morning on a amazing Minnesota sports football day in addition to a great Bison game. And we've got Brent Tehven here, and I'll start by saying great friend, known him for years. We tailgate together, hang out together. And the reason we got him on, he's Brent, you can help me here, but I believe you're incoming president, correct, with the Bison Football Players Association.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a blessing or a curse, but starting January 1, I'll be the new president, and excited to see what we can do with the organization.
Well, we talked at our last tailgate, and there was a bunch of former players in our tailgate, and I think they're excited about you, your enthusiasm, your availability to connect with the community. And, you're a passionate guy, old school West Fargo, and, again, a good friend. But the reason we got you on, you wanted to be the first that donated to the Green and Gold Collective that I'm running and I'm helping run. And I just thought that was neat. You asked me, kind of pointed like, well, has anyone else done it? Has anyone else done it? I'm like, well, geez, we're in the infant stages. And you said, I want to be the first. And I thought that was neat. And I wanted to give you the opportunity to share why you thought that was unique to help the student athletes here at NDSU.
Yeah, I think, at Hurting Horns, we want to be a part of the campus and definitely a part of anything that helps the student athletes out. We've had a lot of student athletes that have worked for us, not just football players, but soccer, track, volleyball throughout the years. And I mean, Jay, I can't believe we're going on our 8th football season at Hurting Horns. Time flies when you're having fun, I guess. But it's a new world of college football and college athletics overall with the transfer portal, the collectives, different things like that. And we just want to be a part of the community and help these student athletes out and make sure that NDSU is in a position where it needs to be with its peers to compete on that recruiting trail and to keep some of our student athletes here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the goal, is to obtain student athletes and then retain them. Let's avoid the transfer portal. But you mentioned it's just a new age, and we're just trying to evolve kind of with the new, we'll call them laws and regulations that NCAA has allowed. But it's kind of like you either embrace this and do it or get left in the dust. And, you as great and part owner of Hurting Horns, which, by the way, 8th year, that is odd. Time does fly, but it's a beautiful bar up on campus, bar restaurant that we've used many times for our tailgate. And now you've kind of what you have done with your personal and professional gift to the collective have made this really kind of the home for the Green and Gold Collective and some of the recruiting efforts that we'll be doing. And I wanted to give you that opportunity to get on the air and thank you personally. And, want to talk a little Bison football with you today. So what do you think? Coming off a tough loss, you're a trenches guy. You're a former lineman. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think, the game's won on the offensive defensive side of the ball and our offensive defensive line from that standpoint. But I think our Rams need to get it going a little bit up front on the offensive side, and we need to make some plays on the defensive side of the ball. I think it goes back to basics, but you and Derek alluded to it a little bit earlier that the Bison have a pretty good record coming off a loss or coming off of a tough game, and I wouldn't want to be the Bears at Missouri State today. I'll tell you that.
I agree, and I think I'd like to see personally some more linebacker plays, some pop plays out of our linebackers. I'd love to see a couple sacks. I'm not even sure if we have a sack. I haven't looked at stats, but like Derek and I were mentioning before, someone on the D-line has to pop. Eli's doing a heck of a job in the middle, but I'd like to see a defensive end get after the quarterback. And I'm not sure how often Missouri State's going to throw the ball, but I agree. It's a bad day to be a Bear.
Yeah, I think, getting back to the basics, I think we got to get back to being a disciplined football team. We've had some untimely penalties. Being a former defensive guy, we can take a penalty or two if it's the right one, right? If we're trying to prove a point or make a statement, but we've had some dumb penalties, and both on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. But I think that usually gets corrected after a loss, and hopefully the coaching staff's got the guys ready to play, and I'm sure they do.
Yeah, I think the penalties last week, it wasn't the number of them; it was the timing and the. They were just huge. It took a touchdown off the board, extended a drive they end up scoring on. So I agree. That's a good point. Back to the basics, and hopefully we'll see some cleaned up Bison football. And I would love to see the Rams just blow off the ball. And like if it's 3rd and 1, I want to see a guy go get 8 yards, not 1.5. I want to see big holes, and I want to see some swagger. So they made some changes, Derek, on the O-line last week. They made a couple of adjustments. So maybe they were seeing something they didn't like or took an opportunity to get better. So it'll be interesting to see what the Rams look like today against probably a little inferior D-line at Missouri State.
Well, I think they're obviously going to want to go downhill more too, right? I mean, I know we talk so much about zone blocking and trap blocking, but what do you think, Brent? They're just going to try to get back to the old-fashioned smash mouth type of football. I think that's kind of what the fans are looking for too.
Yeah, it's hard to say. We came out this year a little bit different, a little different style of offense, a little bit more quarterback run, and like I said, or like you guys talked about earlier. I mean, we got some good backs back there, and let's see what they can do, hopefully, and let them get loose and do their thing. And Barik, get a little shake on somebody, maybe he can take one deep, and it starts up front with the O line, and I know Kubis and those guys. I mean, they take a lot of pride in that, and I think they'll be ready to go.
I'm going to ask you, too. I mentioned this earlier with Jay. It seemed to me so much like the defensive line wasn't getting beat off the ball as much as they were getting caught going one way while the misdirection was going the other way, which is frustrating. When you got a lot of traps and that type of thing, that type of blocking, it's tough to defend, and it's hard to make in-game adjustments to that, too.
Yeah, I think that, they got good coaches on the other side of the ball, and they got good athletes on the other side of the ball, too, and we need to make a better job adjusting to some of that stuff, I think. But, Gazer's been there a long time with that defensive line, and I think, he does a great job with those guys getting them ready to play, and I think we just got to play within the system, and, hopefully we get the best 11 athletes on the field, and we can make some plays, fly around, and have fun.
Hey, we've got a big one next week. I know you and I aren't big on traveling to that city, but tell us your thoughts on NDSU versus the Fighting Hawks next Saturday afternoon. Big one.
It might be the biggest game in the rivalry that we've had, since it's been renewed. I think they're playing better. I don't know if we're playing our best right now, so I think it'll be a really good game from that standpoint. It's on the road, it's up there, and that'll be a little bit. Hopefully, we can get some Bison fans that will travel up there and go to that game or whatever. But I don't know. It's just the school up north, and we'll see what happens with it, I guess.
Brent, I think they've beat up on a couple poor teams, and then they've really struggled against the solid teams. It's who they are, but they have to win a game. And I think after us losing last week, suddenly it became a bigger game for us as well. So I do agree with you that I think it's an absolute monster, and it's going to be 13,000 loud and crazy fans. I think the game is now bigger than it was a week ago.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think the game's changed a little bit. When I was playing, half your, or not maybe not half, but a third of your roster was made up of North Dakota kids, and a third of their roster was made up of North Dakota kids. And we grew up playing either with each other in high school, against each other in high school. Basketball travel teams, we knew a lot of the guys, whether it was the Shrine game, the Montana game. And I don't know if it's that case anymore for the players. They don't know the guys kind of like we used to 20 years ago, 30 years ago. So the rivalry for the players is a little bit different, but I think the rivalry in the state, maybe this will renew it a little bit, get a little bit of fire going, some shenanigans. Me, Jay, I'm a big fan of shenanigans and fun. So hopefully the rivalry can get renewed a little bit more. And you know what? There's nothing better in college football than rivalry games, right? And so it'll be exciting. It'll be Sioux week. I don't know if it's Fighting Hawks week yet, but it'll be Sioux week, and that's always fun.
Well, if there's any shenanigans to be had, I hope I get the invite. So wanted to get a little human interest story today, and thank you for your time and what you're doing at Herd and Horns for the Green and the Gold Collective. Really, really benefiting student athletes. So you stepped up, you're first, and personally wanted to thank you for that. So Brent Tehven, thanks for your time, and I know you're traveling today, so be safe.
I appreciate it, man, and tough coming off a loss for my Packers, but my boys are Mustangs, so they're a little bit excited about that win last night. So, but I know Gibby will get them ready to roll next week, and it'll be fun.
Boy, that's got to be a bittersweet feeling. My heavens! I mean, you've run green, whether it be Bison or West Fargo, as long as I know, and it's got to be a little strange seeing all that orange and blue Boise colors going on.
Yeah, let's just say we sit on different sides of the stadium when it comes to be that game week. So it'll be fun as the boys get older and get into high school and stuff like that. But I'm a big fan of Jay Gibson, what he's done over there, and you look at some of the West Fargo names that have come through there, whether it's Tyler Ohl, Ross Brennan, the Ehrenberg boys that played at NDSU, Kelly Greger, Tony Monty, Todd Zabel. There's some names over there, and a couple that went to UND as well. Caleb Johnson's another one that went up there. So, and there's more that I'm missing, but Jay's had a good run over there, and hopefully can get it back going next week.
That's a great list of men that you just listed that played on both sides of a great rivalry. So, thanks again for your time, Brent. Enjoy your day.
Appreciate it, guys. Have a great rest of the day.
All right, go Bison.
All right, Brent Tehven with us. Kind of interesting, too. You mentioned all those names, and one of my favorites that come through there was Preston Lehman. I'm a wrestling fan, too. He was an amazing guy. Just Yeah, it's been quite a factor over there. As I said to Coach Gibson before the game, get players like Tyler Roll and Preston Lehman, make your job. You look like a smart coach all of a sudden, don't you? When guys like that can come through there. But no, one thing I'm going to ask you about kind of the quarterback matchup of next week, and try not to get ahead of yourself for this week too. It's a big thing here with what's going on. So this is the Green and Gold Game Day Show with Jay Bartley, Derek Hanson alongside here on 740 The Fan and 740thefan.com.
The Common Man.
I went town to town, up and down the dial, and you were always afraid of being fired. There's an old saying in the radio business that I just made up to me: God today, gone tomorrow.
Brilliant! Weekdays 1 to 3 p.m. on 740 The Fan.
Peterman Seeds in Holly is a family-owned seed company with local knowledge and locally grown seeds. They carry a full lineup of Thunder Seed corn and Thunder Seed soybean seed with Enlist, Extend, and Extend Flex technologies. Wheat seed are available from AgriPro and Thunder Seed. Best thing is...
Welcome back to the Green and Gold Game Day Show with Jay Bartley, Derek Hanson hanging out as well. Jay, what a weekend we have. Obviously, we got we've been talking a lot about the Missouri Valley Football Conference. We got UND hosting Western Illinois, and then UND hockey starts tonight over on our sister station KFGO. Game 1 of the Twins as they are taking on Houston for the first game of a best-of-5 series. As you can see, I got my powder blue on. A little anxious to go here.
That's sharp. Let's talk a little bit about this Minnesota sports weekend. If you were down there, so we've got the Vikings playing the Chiefs, a big Sunday afternoon, 3:30, nationally televised game. That's going to be wild. Then tonight, you've got Twins baseball at 3:30. After that, you've got Gophers playing Michigan.
Yeah, Huntington Bank Stadium.
That's a monster game.
National TV. Now, it would be the upset of all upsets. I don't have a lot of faith that the Gophers are going to get much done against a team that might win the national championship. I mean, that's a strong might, but there's just there, I think, in the...
Michigan's schedule is favorable. I think they're going to be in the semifinals for sure. They think this is Harbaugh's best team ever, and they're men.
Yeah.
That their Owen defensive line is absolutely impressive. So...
when they ran over Ohio State last year in that big game, I mean, literally ran them over, and they don't look like they're letting up on that attack at all.
No, I think that's really the brand that he wants to have his team coach like, and it's impressive. But huge game for the Twins here tonight.
Yeah,
let's talk about it. You're a junkie. You've got the sweet sweatshirt on today.
It's interesting with Bailey Ober being named the starting pitcher today, too. That shocked me because I think everyone thought it was going to be Joe Ryan or Kenta Maeda, and they out of nowhere, they pulled the rabbit out of the hat of who we thought was the fifth starter with Bailey Ober, and now he's Game 3 starter against HOF, coming up here with Justin Verlander. I mean, you're talking one of the certainly the best pitcher of our generation along with Clayton Kershaw, right? I mean, those are probably 1-2 of the past 15 years, I would say.
He's just a horse.
Yeah.
And you don't want to face him in October. So, but in a 5-game series, he's going to pitch against you twice. Mm-hmm. So we have to beat him once. I'd like to do it today instead of waiting, but beating him, it's almost like we just have to survive 6 innings and get through 85 pitches and they go to their pen. But, I mean, we're going to have to beat them.
We talk about leadership and it factors, and you've seen it many times. I don't care if it's Bison football, whatever. I mean, you could see with certain guys like, Steve Walker and Brock Jensen as far as leadership or whatever. They had that it factor.
It factor.
Forget about whether they had NFL arms, which they didn't, but, they were leaders of men to bring this program to what everyone wanted to.
Yep.
And you wonder why they spent so much money on Carlos Correa. Didn't have the greatest offensive year or whatever. Boy, you saw it, and just from what the teammates are saying in the clubhouse, what's going on the field, what he brings to the table defensively here. Had a big hit in Game 2.
Yep.
Those are the intangibles that you can't measure like in an NFL combine or with stats that you see for baseball. He knows what to do in October, and he's just turned it up a notch because how he got from that spot where he was standing just near second base on the third base side to the ball that went by Polanco to throw it home, I still don't know how he did it. He looked like Quicksilver in the Marvel movies.
One of the best defensive plays you're going to see.
Yeah.
If that was in a major market, they'd still be talking about that play. Sometimes I think we get overlooked. But
it was Jeter-esque against the A's, for sure.
Yep.
I mean, that was amazing, and so that's fun to see, and I think that's why I think much of the Twins territory's got a little different feeling about this team with the pitching and everything else they have, and they got a back end closer who's he's up there with Chapman at his prime with the Cubs back in 16, right?
It's funny. We went from like the piranhas. We remember that we were like bunting and stealing bases. Then we like led the majors in home runs, and now we have great pitching and a closer that brings it 100. So this is a fun team.
Well,
and
you have a team that wants to be the Bomba Squad. They just, strike out too much.
Out too much. But we've got some youngsters, a good mix of veterans, a great leader in Correa. But we're going to have to beat Verlander, and I don't think that looks great today. But, that's why they're going to play the game.
Well, and so I think a lot of people are looking at, so tomorrow night you got Pablo Lopez, who pitched really, really well in Game 2. And so, then they face this Valdez. It doesn't get much easier there either, right? So, I mean, Houston's the world champions for a reason. And think about that. So Minnesota sports, the top 2 most popular teams, they get to face the champs, the Super Bowl champs on Sunday, the Vikings coming up tomorrow, and the world champs in Major League Baseball with the Houston Astros this weekend. So, knocking off some giants are what the Vikings and Twins are trying to do.
Well, and the Gophers playing, the big brother.
The team that won the Big Ten championship last year for the Little Brown Jug.
It's a tall task for the Little Brown Jug, the oldest trophy in college football.
Isn't that crazy?
I read a little bit about it this week. Michigan started that because they brought their own water back in I think it was the late 1800s. That's how old this trophy is. But they brought their own water because they didn't trust the water that Minnesota was going to give them during a game. And that's how this trophy started. It's a beautiful trophy, and I just absolutely love tradition. And I love that the Little Brown Jug still exists, and that's part of why I love Big Ten football. You grow up in Fargo, North Dakota. That was football.
Well, let me ask you that, okay? So we're going to segue into that. I have never understood why we can't bring back a different nickel with a hawk on one side and a buffalo on the other side. Why can't we do that? I mean, let's face it, the Dakota marker isn't that old, right? And we're talking 2004, essentially, right?
Well, and you can have 2 different trophy games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why haven't we decided to bring that back? It's something I think that the school presidents need to talk about because it seems like a natural. That was a cool thing. You think about,
but they don't even like their own logo.
They
don't want the hawk.
That's a whole different conversation. And again, the logo doesn't have to look just like the logo. It's just a bird, right? I mean, that's a whole different animal. But it is what it is. I think the biggest thing is I think about some moments when the kids run across and they're holding that big nickel. And I don't care if they're wearing forest green or Kelly green. That's just a cool sign.
It's a cool sign.
No matter what you're doing. I think about when UND finally knocked off NDSU after all those years under Roger Thomas, and Shannon Brunell's finally holding it up, right?
Yep.
And then when
iconic,
and then when Bob Babich finally got by those guys, and he was able to be a part of that.
Digger Anderson,
yep.
I mean,
iconic that's what
moments.
Makes it good. I wish that they would look at that. There's no reason not to bring back a trophy for that type of game.
Yeah, I think the rivalry needs excitement, and I think in order for it to be a rivalry, UND has to beat the Bison,
right?
Or at least, I guess they were close a couple years ago up at UND. At least played better, but a lot of times the Bison just run it down their throats, and it doesn't feel like a rivalry. And like it or not, South Dakota State has beat us more than we've beat them in the last 5 years, and they've got a national championship now, so it is a rivalry.
Oh, for sure.
That's the team you were recruiting against. You talk. Brent was talking about how you know each other. I bet the kids for South Dakota State and North Dakota State know each other better than NDSU knows UND players, because those are kids that have grown up playing the all-star games and traveling, fighting for spots, fighting for recruiting visits.
I think what I would compare it to a little bit is I think what this has become in the Missouri Valley Football Conference is North Dakota State and South Dakota State are essentially Michigan and Ohio State, right? I mean, that's kind of they're not in the same state. It's a recruiting battle, as you just said. I do think that UND and North Dakota State can be a little bit of what Michigan and Michigan State is, right? The Spartans, Wolverines, where you're in state, you're fighting within your own kind of metro area. Same amount of distance almost away. I guess actually East Lansing and Ann Arbor might be closer than what Grand Forks and Fargo are. But I'm getting at, there's 2 hot rivalries that Jim Harbaugh has to deal with, and I think that's kind of what North Dakota State is looking at. And as you say, if the shocker comes of all shockers a week from today, then amp it up to, as Spinal Tap says, to 11, right? I mean, that's what it's going to be if they can finally knock them off. And you mentioned that. I think there was a lot of hope a couple of years ago that UND might be able to have the type of team to do it. And then a guy who just got his first NFL touchdown last week, really ruined the party in a
he
quick
ruined the
hurry.
party.
Yeah, Hunter Lipke was unbelievable that day.
It'll be interesting. They do play very, very well at home.
Yes,
and they're just
very
terrible
well.
on the road. I don't really understand it. It's been that way for several years.
Make mistakes on the road, and the turnovers against Boise.
They've had magic in the Alaris. I mean, blocked punt. They block more kicks and punts than anybody. And they're going to go for broke like they always do. There's going to be Danny trick play. Will be at it for UND, and it's going to be fun. But you think about the trophy used to be stolen, and the Greek houses from each. They'd be taking photos with the nickel. That was college football, and I'm not sure why. In this day and age, that's not allowed or fun or trendy, but that was what it was all about back in the day.
Yeah, retire the old one with the old logos for obvious reasons. We know that, but I think they can bring something back new. If Gene Taylor and the president of the athletic director of South Dakota State and NDSU could come up with something in 2004, certainly we can rekindle this thing, and it just adds to the whole mystique of it all. That is for sure. I'm looking forward to the game. I think the history of it, what is at stake, and the pressure that's involved, I think, because let's face it, let's be honest with you, it's not a game I think the head coach for NDSU wants to lose with everything that's going on right now. I mean, because it's...
I know our head coach, he didn't want to lose last week.
No, but...
And I certainly know he does not want to lose next week.
But you know what I mean with just the kind of the angst. And I mean, I don't mean to bring up too much negative. I mean, they need to keep on putting butts in seats, right? I mean, and that's been kind of, it's a little bit of head scratcher how much blue you see sometimes, and people leaving early or whatever. It's something that I think that Bison fans need to get reinvigorated, and I think stomping a mud hole up north next week would be part of that too, for sure.
Speaking of rivalries, I wanted to bring up the Red River rivalry. Okay, this is a monster, and college football is better when Texas is good. Texas is third, playing Oklahoma today. 3 versus 12. This is the rivalry. This one is fun for me. I'm not even a diehard fan of either team.
Right.
It's a game I'm going to go home and watch at 11 o'clock. Looks like Texas is slightly favored. This is a big one.
Yeah.
Well, this is an old school traditional rivalry, just like UND NDSU was. This is exciting. When this one came, this is where ESPN's at, and this will be a doozy today, Derek.
And it's always at a neutral site, which is interesting. I remember Bob Stoops being asked about this all these years too. Long before Riley took over for him, and he says, "Do you want to keep this going, or do you want to do home and homes?" He goes, "It's very important for me to get in that state of Texas and sell the fact that we're going to play this game at the old Cotton Bowl for all these Texas kids that I get to come up to Norman, Oklahoma." And I always thought that we kind of focus on the game that was at US Bank Stadium. I always thought it'd be neat if so you do a home and home, and then once a year you do a neutral site like US Bank Stadium with Northern Iowa, kind of 3 hours apart, and meet there, and that type of thing. That would always be kind of neat. For the same reason, they're both trying to recruit out of the Twin Cities a lot.
Like playing a big game in Minneapolis instead of just a team you're going to smoke.
Right, exactly. So that I always thought that was kind of a cool idea, and I think that's one thing that's very unique. And same reason that Georgia goes to Jacksonville, right, to play the Gators for, they want to get into Florida a little bit.
Yep.
Although Georgia high school football is so good, I don't know if they need to do that anymore.
So many studs.
It's getting up there right now with Florida if you look at the top 5-star recruiting pamphlets that are out there. But no, it's a good time. It's usually always early like this to kind of get the day going. And boy, there's a lot of stake here. You're talking the Big 12 championship. You're talking about maybe a spot in the college football playoff if things go to fruition here.
Derek, I got NDSU 38, Missouri State 17 today.
That's not bad. I like where you're going with that. I like where your head's on that.
And I think it's an angry team. You're going to see it. I think Missouri State might score late to make it look decent, but this is going to be an angry team. I'd like to see us run the ball. I'd like to see us run with our running backs. I'd like to see some defensive players make a couple plays in space, and just play some Bison football. Also, have some fun. I want to see this team having fun. It's like a business out there. And I want to see some urgency. Last week in the second half, we were pounding the ball, but we were using 40 seconds and 40 seconds. I want to see some urgency out of them.
I asked Christian Darrisaw after they lost to the Chargers, says it can be good to be on the road and be in a little submarine by yourself. He goes, I don't think it really matters, but I understand what you're saying, just to kind of not have all the distractions around you. And I think that's really the case here for NDSU too. Coach Bull used to talk about it all the time. We're in our submarine. That's sometimes we're better on the road because of that. You don't have all the girlfriends and friends coming in wanting tickets, that type of thing. That might be a good thing going on the road to take care of a team. And just being on the same airplane and bus together, that certainly can make a difference.
Derek, we've got a big week today, game today, big Twins, Vikings, we got it all. And then next week, we're going to plan an unbelievable show. I can just feel it even talking about that rivalry. We're going to have fun. This week, the Green and the Gold will launch the website for our Bison Collective to help student athletes, thegreenandthegold.com. That's going to launch this week. We're excited about that, so we'll probably discuss a little bit more about the collective, which we've done each and every week here. But next week will be rivalry week on this show for the Green and the Gold game day.
Looking forward to that. I mean, get through the day's games today, right? I mean, that's the biggest thing,
Yep.
and then we'll see what happens next week. And yeah, there'll be a little bit of hype all week. It makes the job easy doing sports talk radio, and I mean, we'll talk about quite a bit throughout the week on the Fan. That is for sure, as you can imagine, the Jack Michael Show. Hey, Jay, thanks so much. We'll see you again next week.
We appreciate everyone listening. Go Bison.
You bet. Green and Gold game day each and every Saturday morning, brought to you by and powered by Peterman Seeds here on 740 The Fan and 740thefan.com. Again, we have UND coming up here with their football game against Western Illinois, then UND hockey tonight here on The Fan over on KFGO. It's game one of the best-of-5 series with the Twins and the Astros. Busy weekend of sports. And then tomorrow night, we'll be carrying the game in full here with the Twins for game two. And then the Vikings will be on KFGO, and they'll join the Twins. So a double blast of Twins baseball for game two with Pablo Lopez on the mound tomorrow night here on 740 The Fan.
Peterman Seeds in Holly is a family-owned seed company with local knowledge and locally grown seeds. They carry a full lineup of Thunder Seed corn and Thunder Seed soybean seed with Enlist, Extend, and Extend Flex technologies. Wheat seed are available from AgriPro and Thunder Seed. Best thing is Peterman Seeds are farmers too, so they won't sell any seed they wouldn't grow themselves. Give Peterman Seeds a call at 1-800-326-3102. Peterman Seeds, right off Highway 10 in Holly and online at petermanseeds.com.
Here